Hello and welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live. Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan here, joined by Eagles Hall of Fame offensive tackle Trey Thomas. The Eagles are 3-0. That's right, count it 3-0 after a 24-8 win down in Landover, Maryland against the Washington Commanders. 24-8. Yes, it was actually 24-8. A total dominant performance up front and thereafter for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have now won not only three in a row, but their last two games by a combined score of 33 points, by a combined margin, I should say. Let's do what we do, guys. We're going to give the big picture takeaway, then we'll get into the offense, then the defense. I guess, Trey, I'll start with you because, I sort of laughed at you last week when you had booked your ticket to Glendale, Arizona for the Super Bowl, but now I'm going to have to go on Expedia after the show and perhaps book mine. So, the Eagles win. It was pretty dominant, man.
Oh, yeah, they just keep finding ways to win. And this was a dominant performance here. For our defensive line to come out of here with 9 sacks against the ginger quarterback down there, man. I think, again, this game plan was Howie Roseman approved.
What does that mean?
Is he defensive coordinator of the year, Howie Roseman?
Yeah, absolutely. He drew it all up. Like, look, man, this is what we're going to do. I need sacks today. And the defense answered. BG comes out of there with 2.5 sacks. 13 years in the game, coming off of Achilles tendon tear. And he comes out with 2.5 sacks today, man. Just absolutely amazing performance by our defensive front today. Everybody was talking about you've been looking for the animal from Fletcher Cox. All right, you got him. He's back. So I appreciate what the defense did today.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Set the tone from the start. Adam, not only have the Eagles won their last 2 games by double digits, but they've actually held double-digit leads in every single game they've played so far. It's hard to find a team in the NFL right now that's been as dominant as the Eagles have been, especially in first halves.
It's crazy. You just mentioned the first halves, right? They haven't scored a point in the second half in either game, and it didn't even matter.
Right.
Now, against better teams, you want to score in the second half, or any game, quite frankly, but they got away with it because their defense has been so dominant. And what's interesting is we'll get the blitz numbers, but it didn't look like they blitzed a whole lot. It's what happened was, and we talked about this in the pregame, would they blitz like the last game, or would they win with 4-man pressure? Now, going into the game, Washington had all sorts of problems. They're with a backup center. Both guards are below average, who used to be great, but they're now well into the twilight, almost done. Trey Turner and Norwell. They're in the back 9 and well in the back 9 of the career, and Sam Cosmi got hurt, and the 4-man pressure won. And I'm glad that Trey mentioned Fletcher Cox, because someone from the Eagles said to me after the first game, we're going to learn a lot about how much energy and Fletch has after the first game and how much pride he has because he did not play well. Well, we outlined that, how poorly he played in the first game. Mm-hmm. He obviously took it to heart. Whatever the tape showed him, that's the truth. The truth tells you what you need to know. And he obviously took that to heart because the tape told him he didn't play well. And the last 2 games he's gotten after it. And the other thing about this game was, yes, Wentz took, we'd have to look at the tape and see how many were on him. There's certainly some coverage sacks, but here's the number that I love. They hit Wentz 17 times. 17.
How many?
17.
Holy cow. That's a
guess what? BG had 5 of them.
That BG was great. It was great to see Brandon Graham with that kind of bounce back game and here in the first 3 weeks. Look, I got a takeaway that I think is going to be overshadowed by everything we just said, and that was no illegal man downfield penalty. So obviously they worked on that. They cleaned it up. It was good to see. In fact, fewer penalties, I think, today for the Eagles than the first 2 games. So that was great to see. And then secondly, I continue to be impressed from an offensive standpoint by the way this ball is distributed all around. This is starting to become an RPO offense, though, that doesn't have to always feature Jalen Hurts running, because as a passer, he is making tremendous strides. And today is a day where he felt confidently about putting the ball up to his wide receivers, and they rewarded him by coming down with catches, and they just completely overwhelmed Washington from the start. That's as dominant as you can be on both sides of the ball, and that's why you get another lopsided score, 24-8. We're going to break it down here in the pregame show. We'll talk about the offense, we'll talk about the defense, get into our players of the game, go through some injuries. Eagles had a few guys exit, but doesn't look like anything long-term is a concern. But yet again, as Jacksonville, yet another reunion game next week, and Jacksonville's playing right now, the Eagles have a lot to take away from this. that's positive. So we'll get into everything in a minute. We want to tell you, of course, about our friends at Manscaped. You can get 20% off using the promo code ITB when you go to manscaped.com. We know it's that season, a little below the belt grooming time. Everybody here loves Manscaped. They've been great partners of ITB, so make sure you take advantage of that discount. You can get 20% off at manscaped.com using promo code ITB. So guys, the tone was set from the start, and you guys both brought it up. This was a game where I think for 2 weeks we've wondered what's going on with this interior pass rush. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox. Interestingly, the guy who set the tone was Jordan Davis with the first smackdown of a Wentz pass there on the first possession. But Hargrave and Cox getting in on the sack game early really forced Washington to sort of, after 3 possessions, have to scrap what they wanted to do and get into safeguard mode. I think the challenge here, Trey, is I don't know why it took 3 weeks for them to do this, but hopefully going forward, they're gonna face some better offensive line that these guys use this as a springboard now. Are you kind of waiting to see this more consistently, or do you feel like they're back?
I think that, to me, I look at sacks and all the pressures totally different because I think coverage dictates that. So I think that our secondary play has been a lot better, especially after that Minnesota game. The Detroit game, they played off. They allowed all the little dink and dunks down the field. Minnesota game, you saw that they came out and they're a lot more aggressive, getting into the receivers' faces, throwing off the timing, allowing the pressure to get there. This game here, same thing. You go out there and the coverage is what dictates it, which allowed our defensive front to get out there. Now, Josh Sweat, that first sack, he just went out there and just destroyed the tackle. He gave him a nice button go. He didn't waste any time with it and just came in with a little bull rush, came off of it, got a nice sack there. And then from there, it was just creating edge rush and getting pressure up the middle. But again, to me, it's always about the secondary being able to make that quarterback hold. And then now that allows our defensive front to get there.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. There were, as Adam mentioned, there were a decent amount of coverage sacks there where Carson was trying to find it. And, Carson, he's not going to ditch it. He doesn't always check down, and he had to take a lot of hits. Adam, I thought what was great to see from a D-line standpoint, not only those 2 guys we talked about, but you and I saw over training camp and even got it affirmed that Brandon Graham, for being his age, coming off that Achilles, was looking very explosive around the edges. And I think that it was just a matter of time. It's not that he was bad the first 2 games. I think that they're just working through their rotations, figuring it out. But obviously huge today with the edge pressure. That second sack, by the way, that's like, to me, Brandon in a nutshell, because he actually you saw him, he tagged the ball. He tried to beat the ball out of his hand first, a la Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, before getting that sack. But he's such a great technician.
Really amazing game. He hit Wentz 5 times. It was pretty remarkable. Former teammates. Graham got him. It's a pretty cool thing. 6 players had at least a half a sack in the game. That doesn't really happen very much. Trey's right. The coverage on the back end was so sticky. As good as their pass target group was, they were completely shut down. There was a great marriage between D-line play with 4-man pressure and dropping guys into coverage. I think what Gannon probably did, we'll see what he says this week, but my guess is he's like, look, we see who's on their offensive line. Let's see if we can win with 4-man pressure. If it doesn't work, we'll start setting the house again. Mm-hmm. And by the way, TJ Edwards everywhere today. The superlatives, guys. I don't know what else to say about this guy. Had a sack, hit Wentz twice, led them in total combined tackles of 10. What else can we say about TJ Edwards is having a breakout season?
No, the guy's been tremendous. It's a great story. We talked about it a lot in the pregame, and it's nice to see something again that we talk about in the pregame coming to fruition during the game, and it's been for TJ Edwards. Trey, going back defensively, you saw in the second half. So not my concern. One thing I was watching for was, after such a dominant first half, would Gannon sort of retreat and back up and just play coverage in the second half? And he didn't. There were still times in the second half where he came with blitzing. I just feel like as the trust is being developed here, and as you mentioned, as the secondary is doing its job, he is showing that he doesn't have to back off. He can continue to put the foot on the pedal, which I think is very important, especially when you're not scoring points in the second half.
Absolutely, especially when you have an offense where we haven't scored in the second half. You have to stay aggressive because you don't want to find yourself in the last minutes of the fourth quarter trying to battle it out. You know, when you already look, man, if they don't score, we win. That's what the defensive mentality should be when you have a 24-point lead. So let's stay aggressive. This is not the time to pull back and just let them go ahead and do whatever they want to do on the offensive side of the ball. Let's stay aggressive. If they don't score, we win. And that's what I think they go into that mindset of let's just keep the foot on the pedal so we can stay aggressive, and then we can walk out of this thing feeling right.
Is there someone in the secondary, Trey, aside from Darius Slay, who you think has really made a huge impact that maybe isn't, because the whole secondary is playing well. And you just said you don't throw those kind of blitzes unless you think you can cover. Is there someone who's going under noticed here?
No, I think everybody right now, I mean, you know, you had the one big play where it went down the sideline, but I think even Maddox is playing really well right now. I think across the board, that secondary right now is playing top-notch football, which creates that pressure. You know, to me, it's all about coverage. So, you know, I think right now, just across the board, we probably have one of the better secondaries in the game right now.
Yeah, I don't think you've heard, Adam, his name a whole lot, but I would suspect that Jonathan Gannon wouldn't be so aggressive with the zero blitzes as he's been if he had to still have Anthony Harris instead of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, I think I don't want to say one person makes an entire difference, but it sure can change the complexion of what you do.
Well, also, James Bradbury's making plays. I mean,
Bradbury too. Yeah, that's a good point.
Their receivers did not get. My concern coming to the game would be, because I know the way that Washington's run their offense, they've become a heavy 11 personnel offense, very deep pass target group. So you never know exactly what a D coordinator is going to do, because they're so sticky on the back end now. And then you add Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as he's sort of a hybrid safety. We know he was a slot corner mostly for the Saints, and they're lining him up everywhere. He has to learn on the run here, folks. We have to understand with this player, he's going to become a really good player for them. He's learning the defense in season. That's not ideal, but they got a very talented guy. And there's a great marriage here between the coordinator now, the last two games, and the players, and it's working. And I just love that they didn't have to blitz a ton, and the four-man pressure won. And again, against a suspect offensive line, and they got home. And you saw the energy. Another thing, Trey knows this as a former player, man. When you start feeling it, you could see it's like, who's going to get the next pressure? Who's going to get the next sack? I mean, I know Wentz had a terrible game, but to get 17 quarterback hits is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
it's pretty rough.
By the way, tough day at the office.
Oh yeah, when Fletcher Cox is crawling on the carpet and kind of taking aim, I think that just fired up the entire team, and it fired him up. You could tell he wanted to go a little big game hunting for even more, and he did. And look, I think we should just squash the narrative now. I know some people are going to look at this and say, well, Washington's offensive line's terrible. They were on a backup center. Okay, that's all true. But you know what? 4 of those 5 guys on the offensive line were there for the first 2 games when Washington was averaging close to 28 points or whatever it was a game with one of the best passing offenses in the league. This was clearly you don't take anything away from the Eagles here. They went out and got it, Trey, right?
No, they did exactly what they were supposed to do in this game. Okay, you had a beat-up offensive line. All right, you should come out of this game with 9 sacks, 17 quarterback hits. If they had came out of this game with only 3 quarterback hits, 0 sacks, and Washington had their way with them, everybody would have been, oh, my God, our defensive line. This is what you're supposed to do. If you have a beat-up offensive line, you go and destroy them.
Yeah. By the way, I know you were not involved yourself in many games where your quarterback got hit 9 times or 17 times and sacked 9 times.
Yes, I was.
I can't remember too many. I know you might have
against the Green Bay game.
TV.
The fourth and 26 play game. I think we gave up quite a few sacks that game.
What's
and
that
I
like?
only know it because they showed the game a couple years ago, and they talked about the sacks, man, and I just felt sick in my stomach just hearing that again. Yeah.
You know who the
thanks for bringing that up, though. That's awesome.
No problem.
Appreciate that. That game plan was not Howie Roseman approved.
Was it Joe Banner approved?
Maybe. I don't know.
By the way, the defensive coordinator for the Packers that day was Ed Donatel. Go figure. The same guy who was the Vikings defensive coordinator right now. So go to a little full circle conversation there. But I'm just curious, as a player, when the offensive line is just getting its bell rung like that, what do you do in the middle of a game? I mean, there's no like single adjustment you can make when they're coming.
You're just trying to hold on, man. And you just like, hey, man, just get rid of the ball a little quicker. Let's do that. Let's try that. You know, let's try to get rid of this ball a little quicker, man. Receivers, I need y'all to get open a little quicker. But I mean, when you're getting destroyed like that, man, you're just trying to hold on.
Yeah. By the way, really important. There were a couple of times where Washington you thought might be able to get. The Eagles had some issues in the first half, but Washington gets down to the Eagles' red zone. They're 5 for 5 in the first 2 weeks in the red zone, 100%. They go for on fourth down. They try the shovel pitch that we've seen a million times to B West. This one to the tight end, and the Eagles stop it. So the Eagles became the first team this year to hold Washington, Adam, without a touchdown in the red zone. Kind of emblematic. I mean, it just felt like whatever they were going to do, they were going to get a stop.
Yeah, we'll get the Eagles off in a second because they did something similar with Dak Pascal, which was an odd play. But yeah, boy, they were very physical up front, very quick to the football. We knew coming in, Washington can't run the football. They really didn't. I know Gibson scored a touchdown late, but it was completely meaningless.
Right.
They did a good job of keeping Curtis Samuel and identifying him. Yes, he got 10 touches, but he was a non-factor. The guys that you were worried about, McLaurin, Jahan Dotson had a terrible drop at it, did not have a good game. Samuel, who had been crazy great the first 2 games, they shut him down. And Wentz is a never say die guy, so he's always going to try to make the play.
Yep.
This is a game where Carson Wentz helped the Eagles defense. He's holding on to the ball way too long. He refuses to check the ball down. He did not do a good job of checking it down when it mattered. He won't take the easy play. And this is a game when Wentz has got a better awareness. When it's not working downfield, get rid of the football, and he refused to do it. He played in the Eagles' hands.
Yeah, no doubt about that. He played into the hands. I think that's a really good way to put it. One last thing before we move away from the defense. Overshadowed maybe a little bit, but there were a lot of runs up the middle from Antonio Gibson. This Washington team came in with the worst rushing offense in the NFL, and Antonio Gibson is a wide receiver trying to be a running back who's going to lose his job once Brian Robinson is healthy. And Brian Robinson was on the field running routes before the game, which is amazing. Is there any concern now, 2 out of 3 games, Trey, I'll start with you, that whether it's gap integrity or whatever it is, but teams are starting to run up the middle on them and get big yards?
No, I mean, because they're doing it early in the downs, you know what I'm saying? So if you have a spread offense, defenses have to play a nickel, which means that you're going to have 6 guys in the box and you have 5 offensive linemen, you have a chance. And all he has to do is make one miss, and then he's right up the middle and he's on to the second level. So, that's something that you're going to have to get corrected. I mean, you're going to have your linebackers play a little bit more physical. You can't have that defensive end get too aggressive trying to crash down in there, the backside defensive end, because then now that opens you up to the RPOs or the play action coming from the backside of it. So, I mean, that's something that they'll just continue to get corrected as they move through this process.
Adam, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I'd say is they got a couple up the middle when the Eagles were up big. Good. Let them run. If you're the Eagles, you want them to run. When you're up a couple touchdowns, let them run. Good. Let them milk the clock for you.
Yeah. No, but there were some in the first half when it was still a close game that I was just surprised by it because Washington has a very bad rushing offense.
They had one really nice misdirection run.
Okay. How about the lack of scoring, Adam, in the second half? Sort of maybe coincidental, or do you think it's like I really don't think it's a thing. I think at the end of the day, you win the game. I mean,
yeah. Look, let's put it this way. They've scored in 1 out of 5 quarters in the second half, but they've been up so big, it hasn't really mattered.
Right.
That's what I said earlier to start the show, is that it gets concerning if you're playing a good team and it's tight and you don't score in the second half, then you got a problem. Something that Sirianni's going to have to address. It's kind of a weird thing because it's like, great, they're getting off to good starts. Relatively, this game, it was sort of like a feeling up period for both teams early.
Right.
And then the Eagles converted, and we'll get the offense in a second.
Yeah.
But overall, this is Jonathan Gannon has got to feel really good because he's been able to, in the last 2 games, he had a blitz heavy game. He had a game where he played 4-man pressure, a little bit of blitzing, now obviously not as heavy. He timed the blitzes very well the previous game. The bottom line is their coverage is so sticky. 2 excellent passing teams, particularly Washington. What Washington did in the first 2 games, they completely shut them down. They did absolutely nothing against the Eagles secondary.
That is true. And by the way, an advantage for Jonathan Gannon going forward now is he can, as long as he continues to get a 4-man rush like this, he can show the blitz, make the quarterback think before the snap, drop some guys into coverage, use the 4-man rush, and then make the quarterback have to think again after the snap. That's part of the confusion that he's always said he wants the quarterbacks to have against his defense. All right, we will transition offense. And as we talk about offense, before we get into the X's and O's, the Slim Reaper. We told you last week he's entered the footwear space. That's right. DeVonta Smith has released his own signature sneaker, and they are beautiful. He's teamed up with N State, the Boston-based sneaker company, to release his very own silhouette in his very own colorways. Did you guys know Smitty's favorite colors are blue and pink? You got to check out these sneakers. And yes, of course, there is a Kelly Green version. If we knew that, the first question people are going to ask, is there a Kelly Green version? Yes, there is. So head over to nstate.io now for more information on the sneakers and all the crazy things that come with them. Because let me just add this. This is a lot more than just a sneaker that you've come across or bought. I'll give you guys an example. As soon as Smitty had scored his first touchdown, his shoe owners won a cheesesteak. All right. So it's more than just sneakers. You got to win a cheesesteak. All right. So go out, check it out. That's nstate.io. You won't regret it. These shoes are available now, so don't miss out on your chance to get in on this. All right. That's a nice transition to a guy who had an unbelievable game. Two guys, Jalen Hurts and DeVonta Smith. Yeah. I mean, it starts with the big 45-yard catch that we'll get into in a sec. I don't know why that red flag wasn't on the field immediately, because I think that there was a lot of reasons to think that it might not have been in bounds, but it didn't matter. I mean, he came back, made a bunch of catches. We saw this, Adam, last year in Denver, where Jalen will throw a ball to DeVonta that might be up for grabs, but he'll just trust that he comes down with it. And more often than not, especially today, he came down with it. That was really nice to see.
He's just, I mean, in the shallow crosses, for a guy who's not the widest guy in the world, he's probably under 170 pounds. Mm-hmm. He still wins. And A.J. Brown, that touchdown, talk about a man's touchdown. He's got his ability to play through contact's ridiculous. You know what I love today? They knew, we talked about the pregame. The news broke that William Jackson, the Mariners' best corner, he's never played up to the level of his contract, but he's their best corner. They knew he was out. The inactives came out. They knowing this, they attacked that secondary. How many shot plays did they take? Holy smokes.
A lot.
They went extra, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, like you just mentioned, A.J. Brown caught his, Dallas Goedert. What I liked, Trey, from a Jalen Hurts standpoint, and I think you're seeing this more this year than even last year, is his understanding that you can attack a team short to intermediate to deep based on the down and distance and the coverage that they're showing. And you saw the short with the screen to Goddard. You saw intermediary to A.J. Brown today, and then deep to DeVonta Smith. And honestly, when you've got that rhythm and that symmetry going on, the offense is really tough to stop.
Absolutely. I mean, when you can go out there and you can pick defenses apart like that. And I mean, now you had two plays where Quez Watkins was held that would have been touchdowns. So, I mean, right now he's really seeing the defense really well. I think he's operating with the offense, knowing where everybody's going to be. He got all his Batmans running around out there, and then they come off the field and they put on capes.
Are you not a fan of the capes?
Yeah, we're not in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we're in college, yeah, all right, that's cool. But yeah.
But this is starting. Cool. This is starting to surface around the NFL. You've seen there was another team that was doing something for turnovers. Like, it's starting to come into the NFL.
The turnover team now is coming. Like, we have the turnover shirt. So we have a turnover shirt. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You can tell Trey.
I love his sarcasm.
Big fan.
I know. That's super cool. All right, and then you come over, you get the Batman cape on. All right, awesome. That's cool. I guess whatever you got to do to keep that energy up, do it. It works. Long as it's working. Working. We keep winning. Man, put a cape on. Go ahead. Do what you got to do.
Just like in Seinfeld. Who wore the cape in Seinfeld?
It was Larry David.
Yeah.
Larry David.
Who wears a cape?
Yeah. Cape is a cool thing, man.
Honestly, I've tried to finish this, Adam. I'll let you finish this sentence. A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith are the Eagles' best wide receiver tandem since?
Oh, gosh. Oh.
I struggle with this one. Quick and Carmichael? I mean, I don't know if we've seen one.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't play together very long.
That's true. They didn't. But when they did,
They did, right. This is the twilight of Harold's career.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, and I think we said this last week, it could be a different guy every week. It just so happened that Browns didn't seem like he had 10 targets, but he had 10 targets in the game. And how cool is it? Their top 3 pass catchers every week, they all scored. Smith, Brown, and Goddard, Mr. Wide Receiver screen, a tight end screen. He got his. Every game they run it, this one they got for a touchdown, 0.3-yarder. And it's, I'll tell you what, man. No, the run game wasn't. I give Washington credit; they did a nice job against the Eagles' run. It didn't really matter because the Eagles moved the ball so well in the air in the first half. But this bodes well when you get into the meat of the schedule. There's some teams that will have better coverage teams on the back end, better corners, better safeties, and we'll see how they do. But the good thing is the complementary football. The defense held their own. The passing game took care of it, and as you mentioned, Jalen Hurts was scintillating in the first half. But the other part about this is Trey will love this. That offensive line in the first half was as dominant as it gets.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job, going out there. I think our offensive line did a real good job with protecting. You go back and you look at it, and we gave up 3 sacks. One of them was because, you had Hurts out there messing around, because I think there was a couple blown plays where it kind of looked like he was like, all right, this should be something. Oh, no, I got the ball still stuck in my hands, and then he went down. And then, you had where Dickerson had to come out of the game when we came out in the third quarter, and you had Opeta in, and then they got beat with the ET. So I thought overall that the offensive line did a solid job. I want to still continue to see these numbers come down when it comes to sacks.
All right, well, we'll see going forward. Obviously, the team on deck, they've got some pretty good pass rushers with Josh Allen and with Trayvon Walker. So it'll be another challenge next week. Going back to the offense, I really think Hurts started off 1 for 5, but where I think it really turned is when they started to incorporate more tempo into their offense. They started to run that no huddle. We saw it last week. He really functions well. Yeah, because I credit him. That's you got to get everybody together. You have to make quick decisions. I mean, everything is moving at a much faster pace. And as the quarterback, you've got to lead that tray, and you've got to know where to go, and you got to make sure you're staying ahead of the sticks. You can't do no huddle if you're behind the sticks. So I give him a whole lot of credit for his processing, seeing what they're doing, and being able to combat it. And I would say that in the first game, they attacked him relentlessly. In the second game, they sat back and played coverage. This was a nice little hybrid where sometimes they were attacking him, sometimes they were backing off, and he picked that apart too. So we've gotten to the point now where we could say Jalen Hurts has seen what you're going to do to him, and he can counteract it regardless of what it is. I'm not saying he'll never have a bad game, but what I'm saying is he's starting to string together really consistent performances, and you're starting to really see him emerge into his own as a quarterback here.
Yeah, absolutely, and that comes with reps. When you hear all of these coaches talk about the Tom Brady's of the world and everybody else that's played so many years, and they like, we can't fool him. Well, he played. I mean, how many reps? I mean, he's seen everything, and that's going. The more reps you get as a player, it can only help you. So, especially in the offense, and knowing what your weaknesses are, where they can attack you. The more reps you get at it, the better you're going to be. And what year is this for Jalen? This is his 3rd year as a starter?
Second full year.
Second full year. Yeah. So there you go. The more reps you get, the more you're going to see, the better you'll react to it, and you just keep moving from there.
Is there a defense you think right now that is the Jalen Hurts defense you'd want to play? I mean, we've seen so many different schemes here in 3 weeks and attack plans.
Can't, because you have so many receivers out there that you can't. Well, you can't. You have everybody has to play nickel. You're either going to play nickel or dime. Right. And then after that, that limits your options on how you're going to attack them. You can't come out there in a traditional 3-4 because this isn't a traditional run team like that. So they can air it out. I mean, you come out here, Jalen, sometimes he can come out there and make his first series of be 3-4 pass plays instead of it being runs. So that kind of dictates how you're going to put a defense out there in front of him.
Well, 17-0 then. I mean, they're unstoppable.
That's what I keep trying to tell you. Get on the undefeated train, man.
All right. We're starting on it. We got it. 17-0, 21-0. When it all 20, if they get the first round bye, they'll get 20. Yeah, no, it's going to be historic.
They're chasing the greatest team in the NFL.
NFL history. But listen, when you can protect like this, look how many shot plays. That deep ball that was thrown to Quez. on the post. I mean, look, that was a pretty pass. He just actually no, the one to AJ Brown. AJ Brown just couldn't get it. The ball was there, he just couldn't get it. Right. You don't do that without protection. They clearly thought they could protect today. That was very obvious.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
One thing I like though is that it's not just shot plays with just Quez. You're getting shot plays with AJ. You're getting shot plays with the Slim Reaper. Everybody right now is getting shot plays, and that just opens up the offense even more.
That's what I was getting at with attacking at all different levels with the same personnel, just on different levels. The Eagles have been able to mix that up really nicely. Bad game for Ron Rivera. I mean, I'm surprised at him. He didn't challenge the 45-yard pass to Devontae Smith, and then right before half, the Eagles go for a fourth. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, which one? I don't know which one you're talking about.
The 45-yard catch on the right sideline by
Devontae
Smith.
Well, he was late.
Well, he was really. you should have had that flag immediately. I mean,
yeah, he
from
was
the start.
Right. How do you not? When you're taken to the woodshed, man. You need every advantage you can get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that would have come back if they had reviewed it. And then Trey, explain this to me. Fourth down, the Eagles decided to go for it at the goal line right there, at the 2, wherever they were, and they hurried up to the line. Clearly caught Washington off guard. Don't you take a timeout there?
Why not? Why do you not take a timeout? But hey, they knew something. They were like, hey, they're off, and then throws this incredible pass to the Slim Reaper, who goes up with a 50-50 ball, and he comes down with it, touchdown. With only 1 second left on the clock, on the play clock. So absolutely incredible.
Well, I tell you, all those concerns week 1 that there was just too much AJ Brown in the offense and not enough everybody else. I think those are gone now. I think the Slim Reaper is doing just fine.
One other thing that I'd add, the thing that I like, I'd have to go back and look at the Minnesota game, but this game in particular. No, actually, they did the same thing. Like, okay, when teams get the ball back late and they have in the first half, they have a big lead, they just run the clock out. Not this team. They have the urgency to try to score when you get the ball back. Too many teams are conservative when they have a 2 or 3 touchdown lead close to the half. This team does not. They're like, all right, we got the ball back. Let's try to score here. And they push the envelope. It's like if you leave and go get a drink, you might miss something late if they get the ball back with 2 minutes left. It's pretty remarkable. They just need to have the same urgency. I understand Craig could relate this better than you and I could about having the urgency when you get a big lead up at half. They've got to do a better job in the second half. That's probably my only small complaint.
Yeah.
They just have to have more urgency in the second half.
All right, we're going to take a break real quick. We're going to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars and our friends at Rivers Casino.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
Game night for me is every night. At the place where I meet up with the guys, grab a cold one, and watch the big game on the big screen. So whether it's the money line, the pass line, or a parlay, I'm in it to win. This is my city, and this is my place.
All right. Thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you go out there to Westchester, PA, where Sky Motor Cars is, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. And of course, thank you to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook in Philadelphia, the host site of our pregame show. Now, we had a discussion about this in the pregame show, but we have a question from Joe Harris, who wants to know, when will Nakobe Dean get on the field? And our discussion, Adam, during the pregame show, and Trey, was that at this point, who are you putting him on the field to replace? Because TJ Edwards is not only a very good linebacker, but he's even playing in dime at this point. TJ Edwards is the best linebacker, and Kazir White is playing very well. I mean, this is if it's not broken, don't fix it. Do you guys both agree with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Adam, where you play him at this point.
No, we talked exactly this question, Joe. We answered because we were laughing at Jeff and I never saw this happening. I don't know if Trey did. TJ Edwards, to start his career as a guy who didn't run very well, not very good in coverage. Teams are taking advantage of him. So the Eagles in 2020 basically saw him as a base down linebacker. And wouldn't you know, this offseason, we had heard that he had a great offseason, maybe the best offseason of any defensive player, certainly one of the best. And he was so good in OTAs and in training camp, they couldn't take him off the field. And now he's a dime linebacker. Like this, we never saw him being a dime linebacker. There was nothing in his game that suggested he'd be the lone linebacker in dime. And he is. And it's been, look, you can't plan for that. He's on a 1-year extension, which means it's a 1-year deal. Yep. And he knows it. And he knows that Dean is itching to get in there. But to answer your question, Joe, he is Edwards is staving off Dean. Dean will only play on special teams. He's just not going to play.
Yeah. I mean, listen, all the respect in the world to guys like T.J. Edwards, Jalen Hurts, Josh Sweat, who, entered this league as a 4th-round pick. I mean, he was a high recruit coming out of high school, but he had some knee injuries at Florida State, has got himself together and has been a really good pass rusher for the Eagles over the last few years. Trey, there's just a lot of good stories. I mean, Brandon Graham coming back from the Achilles rupture, Jalen Hurts, of course. It's just a lot of really good stories on this team so far. And it's sort of a likable, I know it's easy to say when they're winning, but a likable bunch of guys right now. A lot of guys you can kind of root for as the underdogs. Oh, did I say that word? Underdogs?
Yeah, because it might make a t-shirt. I don't know.
But you remember, I mean, you think about that 2003 draft of rookie free agents that included Jamal Jackson and Greg Lewis and I think Reno Mahe, and there's somebody else on Lewis Jackson, Quentin Michael. There was somebody else who made the team too, one of the offensive linemen. But you need those underdog stories if you want to get to a championship or just to be a competitive team in this league.
Absolutely. And I think that's what this team is all about right now. You have a lot of good storylines around them. Coach is really doing a really good job of creating really positive energy around them. He's walking into the stadium with a Mike Quick jersey on. Mm-hmm. Just little stuff like that. All the shirts and everybody supporting everybody, and just the energy that's floating around in that facility right now is just awesome, man. And I think that team is just going to feed off of it. He's allowing their personalities to show. And when you can do that as a coach, the players, they react to it and they'll give you everything they have.
Great. Well, just trying to ask one question. What's great? What do you think about your head coach wearing players' numbers, current and former? Obviously, he's great at connecting. Do you think it's too much? Or you're just happy with it that he respects the retired players? And it's definitely a different thing. I've not seen this before. Someone who doesn't work for the Eagles said to me, it's great now, but when you start wearing players' jerseys of players you have to get rid of someday, then it becomes a problem. So I don't know. I just thought it was something to look at. Does this matter to you? You think it's a great thing? What's your feeling on that?
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, he's doing whatever he has to do to reach his guys. Instead of it being the other way around. Too many times I think coaches just like, look, I need you to be what I want you to be. Instead of it being like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna change it up a little bit and do it my way. And if I need to come on and put on somebody's jersey or put on your shirt or wear your shoes or whatever it is to support you so that you can support me on that field by your play, I'll do that. And I can appreciate that as a player and as a coach. All
right, that's it. It's settled. Next week, Adam and I wear Trey Thomas jerseys on the postgame show.
72?
72, that's right. Vintage throwbacks. All right, it's going to be a fun time. Thanks to Trey. Adam, great job. We'll be back again next week because the Eagles have yet another reunion game. They'll be welcoming back Doug Peterson to the link. He is now the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so that should be I think the crowd will be nice to Doug and cheer for him. He is the only coach that's ever brought this franchise to a Super Bowl championship. Yeah. So we'll have fun wrapping that up. We'll do the pregame show, of course, with me, Adam, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. And it'll be another week of some pretty interesting storylines leading up to the game. So for Adam Caplan and Trey Thomas, I also want to thank our sponsors, Sky Motor Cars and River Sportsbook, Nstate.io, and Mojo, and everybody out there. Have a great rest of the weekend.